The city also decided that most of the big developments would not be built in the form of garden cities, but in the form of so-called super blocks, huge developments. Some of them quite well known, like the Karl Marx Hof or George Washington Hof or many others. The apartments themselves were kept very small to make them affordable. All these new developments included a lot of communal services like public laundries, kindergartens, libraries, health institutions, and so on. Under the slogan, Great Architects for Small Houses, some of the best-known architects, Adolf Loos, for example, or Josef Frank, participated in this housing program. So that was part of the support given to these new cooperatives. Vienna, which now is not only a city but also a Bundesland, established its own taxation program, and so it could introduce so-called luxury taxes, and all this actually went into these reforms, and went into the health reform, into school reform, but first of all into the housing. This was interrupted in 1934 and then taken up again after the Second World War. Today, the situation is more complex because society is more complex than in the early 20th century. So basically, we have two different systems. So one is the so-called Gemeindebauten, which is social housing owned by the city. These council housing estates, they're not being privatized, they're kept in the ownership of the city and they're still used as social housing, but no new ones are built within this sector. On the other hand, the cooperative sector, or as we say, the non-profit sector, has been strengthened, working together with non-profit developers, which means that roughly half of the population are living in public housing, which is, I think, is quite unique in Europe today. And within this subsidized sector, we experiment a lot. So we try to introduce new standards, for example, concerning ecology or energy consumption, but also some other experiments. So, for example, we built the so-called car-free city, bike city, or we built special programs which are called integration programs, where we try to integrate immigrants in Vienna more closely into these new housing estates.
Welcome to the Michael Brooks Show. We're broadcasting live from downtown Brooklyn, USA, where left is best, as it is everywhere else, with super producer Matt Leck.
Hello.
Chief economist David Griscom.
How's it going?
Chief super producer David Slavic, roaming the digital in the Discord, in the ever-expanding, ever-global TMBS universe. Shout-outs to Vic Viana, Artesia, Forrest, and, of course, every single member of the crew on this week's program. Journalist Soumya Shankar. She's joining us to break down what's happening in India's elections. Will the Congress Party regain power and save India's constitution from the authoritarian Modi government? Will the left, the numerous communist and socialist parties, perform well in state and regional elections? Will the broad coalition that brings a Congress Party to power reflect the left? Israeli election results are coming in. It's a great time to talk about Bibi Netanyahu's son, our friend Felix Biederman, who's joining us in studio. Lot going on there. I will reserve most of my thoughts about Bibi's son for my Bibi impression. There's, of course, also Israel's election results. The View is getting so spicy. And Felix and I need to figure out how to solve the Meghan McCain, Joy Behar problem once and for all. Of course, in Joy's terms. And did you know that the head of the Gambino family was assassinated a couple of weeks ago by a QAnon guy? Matt thinks it's a false flag. We'll get into that and a whole bunch more with Felix Biederman, who's joining us in studio. Plus, of course, a shout out marches across the globe for political prisoner Lula da Silva. We're going to talk about that. We have a gem on the wave of workers' strikes going across Mexico. In the post-game, we're finally getting to it. AMLO's first 100 days. Plus, Third Way tries to dunk on Bernie and instead prove their own enduring irrelevance. However, new center-right ideas are being seeded in the Democratic Party in an unexpected direction. That's right. Nice Andrew Yang, Mr. Automization guy, is talking about a value-added tax. Why? We'll get to that. Plus, airstrikes, mass murder from the Saudis continue in Yemen. The uprising in Sudan is in full swing and effect. We'll reflect on that in the post game. And we have another edition of the Debunk with Ben Burgess. And we're also going to throw links up later in the show because Give Them an Argument, Logic for the Left, I believe, is available for pre-order today. So it's time to start buying Ben's excellent book. Plus, of course, your calls and Discord questions and a whole bunch more on this week's Michael Brooks Show. But first, let's get started by talking about the need for housing, the need for dignity, the need for excellent housing for all. Single-payer healthcare, complete universal governmental healthcare is getting put on the table in national politics by activists across the country, by the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign. The absolute need that every single human being have full, unquestioned, complete healthcare, and many other basic acts of dignity. Housing needs to be centered right there as well. No human being should ever have to worry about a home, should ever have to consider how they're going to provide one for themselves or their families or anyone else. It is an absolute fact of human existence that every single person should have a safe, warm home, or cool, depending on the need, home at night. And I'm not going to get too much into this, and I'm not going to over dramatize my experience, but I do come from a family that dealt with multiple evictions, that dealt with chronic and consistent housing insecurity. And even into my adult life, those things that are fine to do when you're in your 20s and figuring it out, but if they persist later into your life are actually incredibly damaging, like having to find house sits or couch surf. The massive economic costs and psychological toll of it cannot be overstated. And it's something that has affected me very personally and I care deeply about. All over the United States and around the world, the city itself is being lost. The great cities of the world are becoming exclusive playgrounds of the oligarchs, the super rich, while longtime residents are forced out. We see this in New York City. Most of the Manhattan skyline is owned by wealthy people parking money here in empty luxury apartments, while the needs of the real people across the economic board of New York City are ruthlessly undermined. And this is the same story in San Francisco and London and Paris and anywhere else. This is the pattern. There's nowhere in this country where a minimum wage worker could afford a two-bedroom apartment. In New York City, San Francisco, and Seattle, finding a place is nearly impossible for a working-class person. And even those in the middle class are forced to hand over an unreasonable proportion of their income just to have space to live. For most of my adult life, when I was not in a position like that, over half of my income, or at least half, went to paying rent. But this is not just an American problem. As we mentioned before, cities like London and Paris are becoming virtually impossible for most working class people to live in. Just this week, there was a massive protest in Berlin against rent increases. In the U.S., public housing has been under assault for decades because public housing, instead of the social, broad-based commitment that it should be for every single citizen, was of course used mainly as a cudgel to segregate cities, to racially dominate and oppress people, and police the poor generally, instead of create substantial, excellent housing for all in every single metropolis. Due to massive cuts in federal funding and the neoliberal idea that public housing needs to be punitive, U.S. public housing has been decimated, and most cities have shut down their programs or converted them to private apartments. Trump's cuts have devastated the programs like NYCHA, and one of the last to hang on faces a $25 billion deficit. But even at its height, public housing in the United States only provided shelter for 3% of the population. In addition, landlords who feared decommodification of housing and racist practices doomed the system from the beginning. There are much better models out there. Vienna shows that not only is public housing possible, but can also be innovative and grander than most of the hideous for-profit developments we see today. 62% of Viennese live in public housing, where average rents for public housing is $470. Not only are these spaces affordable, they're also beautiful and thought of and have care in their architecture. Paid for through higher taxes on the more affluent society, renters with higher incomes, Vienna's public housing is unmatched in quality. Not only are there spaces to rest that are designed to be homes that are severely lacking in most units in the United States, many of these spaces have added amenities like swimming pools and childcare that make these into spaces that people can live in. The units are popular and people from all backgrounds seek them out, and they have the positive benefit of protecting neighborhoods from mass displacement. Neoliberalism has attacked many of the great public housing systems across the globe, but in Spain, the UK, Scandinavia, and Chile, there are also success stories in public housing. To decommodify society, to reclaim public space, to fully democratize life, that is the point of a post-capitalist society. It's that democracy does not just stop in a couple of limited realms of human agency. It expands out so more people have the power to determine the lives they want to live and the communities they want to create. So that in order to free people up of the injustice of paying inflated rent and inflated costs, and to fight climate change, 39% of U.S. emissions comes from residential and commercial building sector. We need to commit to building excellent, green, affordable housing as a fundamental demand of any socialist politics. It's a must. It can be done in a way that will benefit all. And as always, even for the most obvious and modest social democratic plans, like this would be, the answer of where the money comes is obvious. And this would be the right time, if we had planned this a touch better, to maybe just throw Jeff Bezos' face on screen. This is not complicated. We know where the money is. We know that every billionaire is a policy failure and a moral failure. We know that the sequestration of wealth in this world is what is keeping us from an infinitely better world for all, a more creative one, a more free one, a more dynamic one, a safer one, and a higher quality one. And we need to apply that ethos to full public housing for all. Do you guys want to jump in on this at all?
Well, I just wanted to add, for example, in Berlin, these protests have actually been quite significant.
Right.
Not only are they protesting higher rents, they're actually there's groups that are demanding that the government expropriate a lot of the massive corporations that own a lot of the buildings in Berlin, and to make those into public housing. So that's something I definitely want to shout out and support. But, you know, public housing is something that we should be really excited about as the left in the United States. It's an absolutely exciting opportunity to try to build something where we can actually take, I mean, this is one of the biggest struggles of most people's lives, is trying to find a place to live, trying to find that space and decommodify it and do it in a really beautiful democratic way. I mean, I can't imagine something as exciting as that.
Absolutely.
I remember this tweet.
Is this up on screen?
And I don't actually follow this guy, Ramez Nam. He's from like the Singularity U sort of thing, I think.
Do we have this on screen?
Yeah. He says, is housing supposed to be affordable, or is it supposed to be an investment? Because those two goals are at odds with one another. We should focus, and he says, in my humble opinion, we should focus on affordability and let go of house as primary investment. And of course, when you look at why we have house as primary investment, part of that is sort of racialized. And
right.
Yeah.
But that's actually, yeah, I mean, that's a good point from that, more sort of narrow framework. But I think we also, I mean, all of these arguments come down to decommodification on some level. So even these like very basic initiatives, free college, you can make an economic case for it. And you can certainly make an economic case that some form of advanced training whether at university or in a trade, is essential for the demands of a modern economy. And that's fine. We can have that argument. And it should be free and fully available to all. But the broader point is that 4 years of learning how to read and think and absorb information, and in fact, yeah, like be a citizen, needs to be fully available for all, no matter where, what you end up doing. And there's no mistake that every single right-wing project always levels relentless attacks on the idea of any type of public, bottom-up, organic intellectual engagement. That is a signature feature of every right-wing war on society. So the free college debate and Bernie's right on the economics, but it's bigger than that. It's a decommodification argument. And the same thing applies to housing. It applies to healthcare, but it also needs to start applying to the internet. It needs to start applying to reclaiming the commons of the internet. I don't want a global digital Cold War with China. I actually want to reclaim the open spaces that initially engineered the internet. And it certainly applies to the global ecosystems which private enterprise is still plundering and destroying at a astronomical and life-ending rate of every category. You need to decommodify and democratize. Those are the choices across the line for all of these things.
Because the free market system is not working to provide housing for people. I mean, as you said at the beginning, like the city really is becoming unlivable for the vast majority of people, and not just for poor people, even for the most middle class people who can't afford to live in these major cities.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to the shout out. When Matt is ready, we will get to the shout out. Shout out. Shout out. Creepy. Shout out. Shout out. Shout out. Weird. Weird thing. That's creepy. It's incredible. Shout out. DJ Danarchy, the genius, the sonic mastermind behind the entire Michael Brooks Show experience.
Hello.
That's also DJ Danarchy. DJ Danarchy. Would that be amazing if Dennis Prager was like, I really just wanted to be a DJ. I don't want to be some fucking asshole.
Says who?
I thought we liked Michael Cohen now.
No,
well, not actually.
I wouldn't go that far.
No, I don't. Of course not.
Yeah.
But of the Trump universe, he's just a low-grade scumbag.
I like this.
You're a bunch of disingenuous bastards.
I do like that.
I mean, tell me the lie. Shout out goes to protests across the globe to free the world's most prominent political prisoner, Luis Inácio Lula da Silva. Let's play a little bit of this video from Lula's Twitter account. These protests happened everywhere. Curitiba, Brazil, Amsterdam, in Italy, in Australia, across Latin America, also Africa.
There's your shirt was on that guy's calf.
Oh, yeah? I missed it. I got a couple of great Lula shirts at a Lula Libre teach-in at the People's Forum in Manhattan. So we're gonna and on the year-long anniversary of his being put in jail on unsubstantiated, politically motivated charges, barred from running an election that all polls, and I have total certainty that he would have won. He's the rightful president of Brazil. After being shut down from speaking in media, the Brazilian legal system allowed him to write one op-ed for Brazil's largest newspaper. Brian Mayer at Brazil Wire translated it. Can we put it up on screen? And he basically talks about, first of all, the broader reality that exactly 1 year ago I was arrested for a crime of dedicating my life to the building of a more just, developed, and sovereign Brazil. They blocked my candidacy for presidency so that I could not walk up the ramp of the Capitol building pushed by the hands of every one of you, so that together we could revert the dismantlement of the Brazilian state that was promoted by my persecutors. For exactly 1 year, I've been isolated in a prison cell in Curitiba. They have never produced one piece of evidence against me. I am a political prisoner. That's exactly right. There has literally never been one piece of evidence, material evidence against him other than plea bargain testimony. And I keep saying this. I make no bones about the fact that even if the situation was different on balance, I would absolutely support Lula because he lifted 40 million people out of poverty, because he helped end a dictatorship, because he was a global ally of trade union movement, because millions went to college, because of environmental protections, because of a non-aligned smart foreign policy. I mean, these are extraordinary achievements. He is the most successful president of the 21st century. But when you think of a persecution that has gone on for years by the most reactionary forces in Brazilian society, a almost certainly corrupt prosecutor / judge holding the same position, Sergio Moro, the backing of the DOJ, the Department of Justice in this, and literally all they have produced is plea bargain testimony. That's actually extraordinary. Like, it's incredible how pitiful this is. And really the fact that this has been a mass ideological and propaganda campaign, starting with the coup against Dilma. He goes on to say, talk about how what he and for exactly 1 year, my enemies have searched reason to celebrate, not found one. We have suffered repeated setbacks since the coup against President Dilma. It's true, but our losses have strengthened us for the fight, while their victories have not given them one moment of peace. They are getting richer and richer, but their fortune gained through the suffering of millions of Brazilians does not bring them happiness. During my farewell to my grandson, Arthur, all of Brazil was surprised by the immense and unnecessary repressive security apparatus set up against me. Squad cars, helicopters, military soldiers carrying heavy weapons, everything to prevent me from even waving to people who came out to show solidarity with the pain of a grandfather. His 7-year-old grandson died from meningitis. This is the same grandson that Sergio Moro, in one of his searches of the Lula home, took the child's iPad and never returned it. It was a moment that I understood that they are not afraid of Lula. They're afraid of millions of Lulas because they know that we are capable of when we unite and transform the country. And he goes on and he says, a hug and forwards to victory. We will certainly keep covering this on the show, which is at this point obviously no surprise to anybody, but this needs to be centered in the Democratic primary, and it needs to be centered as a doorway for understanding the lethality of U.S.-supported brutalism of the Bolsonaro regime, and also the global spread of neo-fascism enabled by the failings of neoliberalism and a generic anti-corruption politics that has reduced politics to crass moralism and demagoguery, and put a truly extraordinary leader to be persecuted vindictively by an entire corrupted legal apparatus and put in prison. It's truly disgusting. And I appreciate all of you who've registered that along with us. I really do. All right, we're going to do a little bit of a pitch, and then we will get to Soumya Shankar to talk about India's elections. Matt, you want to try your hand at the pitch this week?
Oh, well, I'm going to be there. And also, if you haven't bought tickets yet, you should probably do that.
Well, let's set them up a little bit. Do we have the bootleg up on screen? All right. I love it. I love it. Getting right to the meat of it. But
we got the sun on our minds, honestly. It's been
I know. It's time to get to LA, boys. I agree. It's time to drink our pina coladas. that is going to be like, there was something like when we had to prep for the the New York live show, which was great, but we're like, it's February, it's New York. We're literally like, do you remember when we had that meeting with Trevor and Mike Racine and it was like literally 10 degrees outside?
No, my mustache was frozen.
Your mustache was frozen. We were like huddled, like drinking, like just like, well, wouldn't it be funny if we, and then Dave Rubin did a meditation. So now we're like, hey man, we're going to see Nando and Anna and Waz, and we're just going to be in LA and it's going to be awesome. All right, it's up on screen. Matt, go for it. Do the pitch. Why should they get their rapidly selling out tickets to the April 20th TMBS LA live show?
Well, the practical reason is because they're about to announce these on the Young Turks network, and
They've
if you
already
actually
done
want to
it.
go to it, you should get on there very soon because we want to sell this thing out, and it could very well happen. I mean, this is our second one. Look, I'm not gonna downplay the shows we did earlier at the Bell House, but it was our second and third time at the Bell House. We've done the Bell House. This is Los Angeles. I've never even been to the West Coast. Well, I've been to Seattle, I guess that counts as the West Coast. But I've never been to like the warm West Coast, and let alone on April 20th. So I'm very excited to spend a weekend there. So come out and see us,
Guys, this is going to be an incredible show. We want to see you there. We also want you to become a patron next week or this Sunday. I should tell you, we're doing a show this Sunday with Adoma Ketchiachu. We're starting streaming live at 6 p.m. It's going to be a normal show. It's just the final week of April. We're off. So we want to make sure that you're not missing a week of shows. Next Tuesday, Richard Wolff returns, April 16th. And this Sunday, Adoma Ketchiachu on the sort of birth of the third world. She's written a fascinating book. We did an illicit history, and now we're going to have a show with her for everybody else. But we'll get that list of all of the illicit histories and primers. As I always say, I mean, this is a global political education. There's also the think tank segments where the three of us sit down and we take your questions from patrons and we sort of, we kind of figure things out and run stuff by each other and kind of like struggle together on how we get out of all of the predicaments we're in and really create this better world and scenario, a world that works for everybody that we're looking to create. You'll be grounded everything from the labor theory of value to the politics of South Africa, and you will get a lot of entertainment and laughter, and you'll also get an opportunity, many opportunities to interact with us in the show, and a thriving Discord community and everything else. Do it now. Patreon.com/TMBS. Subscribe if you haven't yet on YouTube, and of course, seed our content everywhere else. We appreciate it. Patreon.com/TMBS. Patreon.com/TMBS. Get your tickets to the bootleg April 20th. We will be right back with Soumya Shankar on the Michael Brooks Show. Welcome back. Michael Brooks here on the Michael Brooks Show. It makes sense. Joining us now is Soumya Shankar. She is an Indian journalist covering social movements and politics in South Asia. Soumya, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
So, Soumya, elections are taking place in May in India. This is a very complicated country, very complicated election. I want you to kind of take us through the basics of it and obviously center it in the left perspective that you have and this show has. Can you start, I guess, working backwards? Who is Narendra Modi? And what are the politics he represents? And is the threat that he poses to India, and particularly its minorities, unique?
So, Michael, actually, the elections start in a couple of days. And since we have the world's largest elections going on in India, it will be spread across 1 month at least. So April 11th to May 19th is what we have right now. Narendra Modi is a very interesting figure in Indian politics. He was the chief minister of a very important western state called Gujarat in India, and his entire politics has been bred in the sort of crucible of right-wing Hindu nationalistic thinking, wherein the RSS, which is the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, in which Modi was a lifelong volunteer, has dictated a lot of his worldview. The RSS wants, of course, to purge India of its minority citizens, if not that, at least relegate them to a second-class citizenship. Modi has been ruling over Gujarat with a very right-of-center economic policy when he was chief minister, and he also was the chief minister when the Godhra riots occurred, in which over 1,000 Muslims were killed. Many human rights groups and international organizations accused him of abetting that violence and not condemning it in full force. Modi was banned from entering the United States for many years, and his visa ban was lifted ultimately in 2014 when he was elected the prime minister of the country with a thumping majority. And since then, since the past 5 years, what we have seen in India is a massive crackdown on freedom of speech and expression, on dissent, on activism, on universities, on even the judiciary, other democratic institutions of the polity, and the opposition sadly has been relegated to a very small minority. The Congress Party, which is the grand old party of India, which won India its independence from the British colonizers in 1947, was reduced to a mere 44 seats out of 545 in the 2014 elections. The left, interestingly, has retained its rule over the small southern state of Kerala, but has been routed almost entirely from the rest of the country. So that's where we are at right now. We have these two giant political parties, the BJP with the Hindu nationalist worldview, and the Congress with the more secular and liberal worldview. Both are extremely right wing when it comes to economic policies, though the Congress being less so than the BJP, of course, and then a host of regional parties. We had over 400 contest the 2014 election. So in India, we're saying that it is the regional parties that will decide what is going to happen in about a month from now.
So, okay, so you have two main parties. Congress Party, talk a little bit more about them. They're the Party of Indian Independence, as you said. Is it like, as an example, is it like the African National Congress in the sense that there's maybe a right wing and a left wing inside the party? What does it, and today, the dominant strain of it, like what are they running their campaign on? What are they saying they want to do in response to Modi's reign?
So it's a very interesting question. The Congress Party is a little bit like the ANC, but not entirely, because it used to be an umbrella coalition, much like the Democrats here, actually. But since the 1970s, we have seen that coalition reduce, and in that vein, we have seen the growth of regional parties, many of who have cut their ties to the Congress and have founded their own minor Congress parties in the regions, with particular linguistic component active there as well. So the Congress Party's promises this election season are very unique and very interesting in that they have a very, very progressive manifesto that they have released, which has really figured in a lot of ground level voices. It is not personality centric, even though they are running under the banner of Rahul Gandhi, who is the grandson of Indira Gandhi, ex-prime minister, and the great grandson of Jawaharlal Nehru, one of the founders of modern Indian democracy, and the son of a previous prime minister as well. So it is sort of dynastic in that respect, but it is also trying to wrest free from its image of being nepotistic and dynastic. And they've promised a lot of liberal and progressive changes on national security. One of the most important being an amendment in the laws that give the armed forces absolute impunity to do whatever they can, including rape, murder, loot, in the past in Kashmir, which is a very, very disturbed and conflicted region in India. So they've also promised a huge job creation machinery. Unemployment is one of the major factors that both parties have to deal with in this coming election. The Congress Party is also promising to bail out all the farmers with their pending loans. There's a huge farm agrarian crisis in India, and the Congress Party is sort of stepping into that zone as well. So it's definitely looking that they have more pro-people and pro-poor policies than the BJP right now, which is focused on three things: nationalism, sectarianism, and capitalism.
And what was the last one? Capitalism?
Yeah.
So
unhinged, sort of bringing Modi's own friends from the business industry and giving them free rein to do whatever they want, including all their loans and all their debts that have been mounting. Modi has sort of given them a free chit on that.
So is it in this case, and this is what I'm curious about understanding the BJP and Modi more generally, because they're fusing together not, and again, obviously there's many different types of nationalism and we need to make some distinctions here, but they're not talking about like a kind of proud nationalism of course, we, got rid of a colonial power like the British, and we have a pride in our own culture and so on. I mean, these things are actually, I don't think, certainly globally, these are not controversial attitudes to have at all. Mm-hmm. But they are trying to actually reconstruct, in some cases, even like a magical history, like they're literalizing certain things. So as an example, like almost like the way some people here would say, set like a biblical creation museum. There's or if you went to got an official textbook in Saudi Arabia or something, or if you went to a religious community in Israel, you might get a very cosmological view of how the universe was created that is antithetical to science. So some of that is going on. But I'm also curious, like how that fuses with. Was there ever a time, I guess, in the party when the nationalism and sort of like sectarianism was fused together with maybe a skepticism about capitalism or foreign capital? Or was it always, in the BJP, or was it always this fusion? Because it really does remind me of Republicans. On one hand, of this like romantic fixation on a certain identity, but then on the other hand, opening all of the doors for even the same forces that will, in fact, I'll just like lay it on the line, like poison India's sacred rivers, get rid of people's religious attitudes. Like capitalism threatens socially conservative things as well. So how is that? So it sounds to me like Modi's like a Republican in the sense that he's really going all in on all of it. Was there ever a tendency in the BJP that tried to be ultra right-wing and social and sectarian issues and also had a bit more skepticism about capital as an example, or has it always been this way?
It has actually always been this way, and it's a very good question, because when the BJP was formed, it was formed economically as an antithesis to the Congress's rule of socialism. So under Indira Gandhi in the 1970s, we saw a massive drive against privatization. We were always socialistic when after we achieved independence from the British. But then in the 1970s, that thing became, socialism became extremely severe to the extent that there was a whole round of nationalization of banks, and the curbing of the rights of former princes, royalty under the British, who were nurtured by the British. So in that sense, in 1980, when the BJP actually formed, their entire idea was to align with the United States rather than Russia during the Cold War, and by that time the Cold War is ending, and to bring in business, to bring in foreign investment, and to bring in absolute, revival of the economy, so to say. That was the economic agenda of the BJP, and they have been more or less extremely Republican in that way. Even when we have seen BJP governments come to power, they have ushered in those policies. They have done away with SOPs, etc. But what we have seen is also just before the elections, the BJP will come out with these massive SOP programs where they dole out money to the poor and to farmers and promise to waive off their loans, etc., etc. In reality, it doesn't really happen. One of the biggest promises of 2014, Modi's election bid in 2014, was literally to put 15 lakh rupees into every Indian's bank account. Literally, this is what he said. And a few years after the election, when the national president of the BJP was asked about that election promise, he laughed and said, "Wow, well, that was just an election jumla." Jumla in Urdu, in English, literally means it was a gimmick. So
that sounds like a Trump line.
Yeah, that's true.
I could see him say that. It was a jumla. So okay, and then of all of these regional and small, actually, before we get there, really quickly, why has the left retained power in Kerala? What have they achieved in Kerala that's distinct as a state from the rest of the country?
Kerala is it has one of the largest literacy rates in the country. It has one of the most equal sex ratios in the country. It has it has huge representation of minorities. Muslims, Hindus, and Christians in Kerala are almost, equal, with Hindus being a little more in number than the rest of the minorities. In that respect, and there's a huge diaspora from Kerala that lives in the Gulf and that works in the Gulf and sends back remittances, which has made the state really, really wealthy also. All of these promises, including the history of Kerala, Kerala was one of the first states to have a non-Congress government under EMR, the name of the chief minister there, who was a leftist, who was a member of the CPI. So all of these factors, high literacy rates, more or less a huge representation of minorities, and a history of leftist politics make sure that the left has a very strong cadre that is present in Kerala, and that is very, very active compared to the other parts of the country where they've been absolutely routed. Kerala still has that ecosystem which facilitates left politics.
So as part of who wins this race, you said it will involve basically, a combination obviously of vote totals, but in either scenario, Congress or BJP will need to stitch together a coalition of these nano parties to win. So I'm assuming Congress will move with the left parties, and then what would the BJP's coalition partners look like?
So the BJP's coalition partners, I think there are 40 already that they've stitched together, are increasingly the right of center Hindutva parties, one of the prime examples being Shiv Sena, which is very active in Maharashtra. Maharashtra's capital is Bombay. It's a very populous state, very wealthy as well. It houses, of course, the financial capital of India, where this regional party has had a lot of voice amongst the Hindu voters and has talked about not just eliminating Muslims and a huge anti-Pakistan narrative, of course, but also eliminating people from other parts of India who want to come to Bombay and work there as a cosmopolitan city. So that is Shiv Sena's politics. The founder of Shiv Sena, Bal Thackeray, is really known as one of the most divisive figures and polarizing figures in Indian politics. Shiv Sena is one of their allies. In the south, in Tamil Nadu, we are seeing one of the biggest regional parties, the AIDMK, which is Jayalalitha's party, as one of their allies. But how it is working for the BJP is also the fact that some of the allies now under weakened Modi have learned how to arm twist the BJP to get more seats. And for instance, in Tamil Nadu, the BJP has been given just 4 seats to contest, and the BJP is accepting this because right now they know that their position is weak. So this is what the BJP coalition looks like right now, and for sure the BJP is absolutely kneeling in front of its allies right now, because they know if they want to get even a simple majority, let alone an overwhelming majority like the last time, they have to stitch together an alliance from anywhere they can.
In the last couple of minutes, and we'll have you on again in the future as well as other guests to talk about Pakistan and the relationship between India and Pakistan. I don't want to just buttonhole something so important in the last couple of minutes here, but so we will get to that, and hopefully we'll have you on among others to talk about that. But I want you to give now I'm going to ask you the Chris Matthews question. I mean, what is it looking like? Who's going to win? And also, more seriously, I mean, do you think that this is, and again, I'm simplifying things incredibly here, and we can go into Indian history and Indira Gandhi and declaring a state of emergency and the mass murder of Sikhs after her assassination and so on. We don't have to romanticize anything. However, from the founding through now, the Congress Party and elements of India's political leadership have actually achieved some incredible sort of gains in kind of having an open society in some ways. And it is in my read,
comparatively.
yeah, comparatively, in my read, is fundamentally under threat from this Modi government. So I guess underline, I mean, what your sense of the results, and maybe finally what the real stakes are here.
So the real stake right now is the idea of India. The idea of India itself that was founded as a pluralistic, secular country with freedom of expression and a place for all. And in terms of who's winning, a few months ago, I would say that Narendra Modi looked invincible. But following the national election victory in 2014, but after December 2018, where the Congress won 3 of the key Hindi belt states, we saw that Narendra Modi was looking increasingly weakened. What has happened now after the Pakistan strikes, after 40 armed personnel were killed in Kashmir, and then Modi conducted some air strikes on Pakistan. We do not know the veracity of that argument. Modi claimed that 300 were killed. We do not know exactly what has happened. Of course, there's radio silence from his side because he does not like to take questions from the press either. But things are extremely complicated right now. We cannot say who's going to win, but we know that whoever comes to power will come into power through the massive force of India's regional parties and not by their own metal. And even if the BJP comes to power and Narendra Modi becomes prime minister again, because the way Indian democracy works, there's going to be a huge check on how many policies he can usher in because of his weakened majority in parliament. So it's really difficult to say who will win, but whoever wins, the idea of India is what is really at stake right now.
Soumya Shankar, I really appreciate your time, and we'll have you on again as these results start pouring in. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, folks. The TMBS Global Tour continues. I look forward to when we should do a live show in Kerala.
I'd love to.
That would be dope. We have definitely had people in the subcontinent, certainly people in the Middle East. So, yeah. But it's fascinating, and the stakes are really high. It is time for some other high stakes. The David Griscom Economic Minute, the GEM system, if you will.
Yeah, well, taking this one a little international as well. Hello. But, not so much as you would think. It's really important to recognize how connected we are in this country to Mexico. And so often we pay attention to, especially what's going on in Europe, that we forget how crucial Mexico is, not just rhetorically, but also, economically fundamental to the United States economy. And we're so connected to Mexico, not just on the terms of immigration, but because of all of our supply chains really are passing through Mexico. And specifically because of NAFTA and because of all these trade agreements that we've developed over the years, it's been Mexican cheap labor that has been very influential in supply chains. So you hear people talk about all these factories leaving the United States, and they forget to talk about what's happening on the other side, wherein people in Mexico are actually worse off, most workers are, than they were before, for example, NAFTA went into effect. So talking about the maquiladora system, which allows for companies to bring in materials into Mexico to produce and then export with very low tariffs into the United States. This system really allows, a major corporations to exploit Mexican labor, and it's really cheap. I mean, we're talking wages are typically on average less than $15 a day. But recently, there's been a very significant strike wave in the city of Matamoros, which is across the Rio Grande from Brownsville, Texas. So since January, so this is very recent, around 50,000 workers have gone on strike on companies that either are directly affiliated with or supply Walmart, Coca-Cola, GM, Ford, Tesla, and AutoZone, along with many other organizations. Now, talking today, 90 out of 95 factories in Matamoros that have conceded to these workers' demands. So this has been significant, not only in mobilization, but also in victory. And the Maquiladora Association has estimated that they lost over $100 million in losses over the course of these strikes. And not only were these strikes led by unions, we also had 45 wildcat strikes. So those are, technically illegal strikes, but any good strike action is going to tend to be illegal. So it means that, there's mobilization that's going on across the board. And, we're talking about, and also let's not forget that concessions were won at the super anti-union Walmart. So, it's very significant to also recognize that the political context has changed. And a lot of people have argued that this has been spurred by wage increases put in place by AMLO. That went up from 88 pesos to 176 pesos around the border regions. So what the workers there have been demanding is what they call the 2032 movement. So when they had the minimum wage increase, they wanted wage increases for workers across the board, not just the people who were making the least amount of money. So they want a 20% raise and a 32,000 peso bonus, one-time payment, which is around $1,600. And many of these workers have been able to get this. The question is with AMLO. So AMLO, what he has done so far has been very significant in that he hasn't broken the strikes.
That's
you have to understand how right-wing a lot of these Mexican governments have been.
That is fucking huge.
Absolutely.
That he hasn't broken the strikes.
People are frustrated that he hasn't come out in support, but we will recognize the fact that there's been such a significant political change there that it is allowing for more.
Not breaking is the most significant.
Absolutely,
thing
because
now.
These people have ordered in, have demanded basically that the federal government come in and break these strikes violently. One of the Coca-Cola had their one of their HR people tell people who weren't affiliated with the union to beat up their fellow workers. I mean, it's quite violent.
And
the kind of arguments that are going.
Coca-Cola's record at Colombia.
Oh no, they're disgusting. Disgusting. And just real quick, I just want to hit these just so we can recognize how important this movement is that's going on in Mexico right now. Out of all the OECD countries, Mexico has the lowest average earnings for workers. So when we're talking about these trade agreements, when we're talking about immigration, when we're talking about what's happened with moving labor outside of the United States into other countries, we also have to recognize that the effects have been devastating. Before NAFTA, workers in these towns were making the equivalent of $1950 a day. Which is still not a lot, but significantly more than the average $9 a day that workers in these factories are making. So NAFTA has been a really bad deal for Mexicans especially. So the direct challenge to these exploitive systems that have been put in place by the United States and by previous Mexican governments are, what's going on right now is very exciting. But this is going to have a significant effect, not just in Mexico, but in the United States. Because if we can start to break these supply chains that use this really cheap, exploited labor, we can start to see some really significant movement. We definitely are seeing a radical labor movement that is brewing in Mexico. It could shake up labor relations in North America, and the powerful are already mobilizing against to stop it.
Absolutely. So, this is something that we're going to cover more. We're also going to do AMLO first 100 days in the post game. But I do think, this is exactly the argument, though. And I think AMLO is genuine. He is on the left. He is somewhere on the left. So it is different than simply voting to avert catastrophe, right? Maybe you vote for Macron to make sure a fascist like Le Pen isn't there, but Macron is pure enemy, and yellow vests need to go in the streets, and he's an enemy, and that's it. In AMLO's case, it's more complex, but you do see the space that is opened by having the levers of the left in power for the greater demand that also has this spillover effect, as you're saying, on our own supply chains. It's
absolutely, and it's absolutely significant. I will just say, I agree completely. I think the reason people are pushing is because actually it's so exciting that they have the opportunity where potentially you could even have the president supporting strikers.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's something that we definitely should be pushing for, and it's a possibility, which is why people are doing it.
100%. All right, here's what we're going to do. That was the gem. You ready for Wolf next week?
I'm ready, man.
I don't know. I thought he kind of smoked you last time. It was a little uncomfortable to watch. We're going to take a 30-second break, give you some drops, and we'll come back with my paisan, Felix Biederman. Hey, man. We're going to have a good time. We'll be right back in about 30 seconds. All right, welcome back to the Michael Brooks Show. Joining us now is a friend of show, Felix Biederman, Chapo Trap House.
Glad to be back.
How you doing, man?
Good. As people know, I've experienced a medical crisis, 2 cavities on the left side of my mouth. Now we're finding out that we will need a root canal.
Jesus.
There will be a GoFundMe up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why do you need a GoFundMe? I thought Patreon was working out pretty well.
I'm dedicating all my liquid capital to a new investment strategy centered around slot machines.
Right.
Can't really spend it on the dentist.
I understand.
Yeah, if you guys can put the link in the description of this episode, please. We've done it with a ton of other stuff.
No, naturally. I mean, yeah, if the money's spoken for, it's spoken for. You were just talking about how people try to drag you, and I think this happens to all of us. People will tweet you at like 3 a.m. like, did you see that like Bob Smotherfield of the like Enraged Taxpayers podcast said that you distorted the non-aggression principle? And you're like, that's okay.
Yeah, no, he can do that.
Yeah.
I don't care. Yeah. Did you say, oh my God, you should see what Carl Plano said about you guys. Should I? Should it? Will that affect
really
my life
necessary?
at all? We were saying, so like my profile now just says that I support QAnon, Jussie Smollett, Trump Russia, and Lori Loughlin.
So you're literally covering everything.
So no one can argue with me. No, like the strategy is like if you just go to my page, it's so fucking stupid. Like, why would you argue with me? Because I don't want to do that. I don't want to like look at some guy's YouTube.
Well, I don't want to look at some guy's YouTube either.
Besides this one,
yeah,
and Daily Twitch Clip Central, and that's it. Those are
Right.
all the YouTubes.
Michael Brooks Show, Daily Twitch Clip Central, and maybe. I mean, it's funny because we're mocking the idea of going down rabbit holes of stupid shit on YouTube, and then I bring you on. What is the title of tonight's show? I've literally forgotten.
Indian elections. Dave Rubin's GAMER-Mensch, and Dave Rubin's GAMER-Mensch.
And Dave Rubin's Gamer.
Oh, I saw that when Dave Rubin was like,
we're gonna do this.
We're gonna
do.
gamers.
I want you to play. Can you pretend to give me a fresh reaction on this? Because I want to play this for you.
All right,
now.
yeah, no, we can do that.
Yeah, let's pretend we're gonna hit this fresh.
Well, I like the idea of acting so dumb that nobody argues with you. Like, I feel like that's like.
Is that what
People
Dave?
still argue with me.
Is that what Dave's trying to do though?
No, Felix was saying.
No, I understand what Felix is doing, but what is Dave doing?
He's acting so dumb that people never argue with. It's kind of the same thing.
right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe he's actually a genius.
We had a YouTube stream the other night where we watched Dave Rubin stand up. So fucking.
We've
bad.
done that. Do you like? Wait, did you watch the demographics one?
No, I watched the one where he's like, "Oh, are there conservatives in the crowd? Yeah, I can tell because you're wearing clothes and have jobs." Damn, that's fucking crazy, dude. I haven't heard that joke since 1952. It's like if like it's just it was just very. It would like anyone's funny uncle is funnier than that. Even if they're like a MAGA uncle, they're funnier than that. I don't know how he got that job.
No, I mean no, because we've actually played clips of his like comedy supposedly when he was like a comic like in the 90s, and it's literally the same bits except like, are there any gay people in the audience? Oh, you can tell they're gay people because they're color coordinated.
Isn't it weird how we all hate each other?
Like it's so. I mean,
Oh, you know what you make him sound like, or he does actually sound like this.
Who?
Have you ever seen my one of my favorite YouTube videos, Hanwei Katana unboxing?
No, I think we need to find that.
That's Sodding Gamer.
All right, let's find that.
Dave Rubin has like a very similar voice to this guy.
Do you want? All right, let's find that, but let's play. I do want to play because I'm also coming to you for expertise, honestly, man. Because I don't know a fucking thing about gaming, so maybe Dave's onto something.
Some days I feel like I know everything. Some days I feel like I know nothing. Way of the road.
That's because you're improving.
Well, I've been changing my DPI a lot.
What does that mean?
Dots per inch. How many like dots on your monitor, an inch of movement on your mouse pad covers?
I don't know if I want to tell you this, but when we hit, and this is a while ago now, so we actually what we have to do soon because I keep putting this off. We're now over 2,000 patrons, and in celebration, a patron has ordered us a who is it? What's his name again?
Ronald Reagan?
No, but who's the
Jim Baker.
Jim Baker, Jim
yeah.
Baker's survival food bucket. And we're gonna have a contest to see who can make our way through the most of it, and that's gonna be horrible. When we hit 1,000, we did a live stream of me playing with Matt. What was the game? What did we play?
Wolfenstein.
Wolfenstein, and that shit is really embarrassing. I did not equip myself well.
I played a game horribly on stream. I played the first Metal Gear Solid, and I like forgot how to play it in like the fucking 12 years since I last played it. And it's like I talk about it all the time, so it was embarrassing because I was like shit at it. I literally didn't remember how to play it.
Yeah, but
So-
I have a feeling that your version of shit is different than my version of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was sad.
Hey, sometimes you're the bot, sometimes you're the pogger. That's what they say on Twitch.
Let's watch this Dave Rubin clip. This is pretty great.
I love that. I'm gonna make that face my new app. Yeah, Paul's face right now. That's
Yeah,
sick.
Colin Moriarty is, I think, a former IGN guy that became a libertarian Twitch guy.
Could this just be an emoji? I know that he's like mid-speech, and if he buzzed me talking, it'd be amazing.
No.
It's so fucking funny.
It's still very schmucky.
He looks fucking tight.
Is there a connection, since I'm out of the video game world a little bit, although I want to talk some video games with you today?
Yeah, I hijacked the last one. I don't want to.
Yeah, but you have dragged me back into the world of games, and I'm happy about that.
Good.
But is there a connection that maybe is something through Gamergate and everything else about that when you're playing games, right? And I'm sort of back in now, and what am I playing? I'm playing
Axiom Verge.
Axiom Verge.
Made by my friend Tom Happ.
Yeah, how cool. I called you up. I'm like, I finally found a game I like. You're like, oh yeah, my buddy created it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, awesome. So I'm playing this game. It's sort of like an old school Metroid.
Yep.
And you have to do a lot of the things repetitively to really figure it out. I had to FaceTime with you because I got stuck in these two stupid walls. And,
Pause
okay,
it.
whatever.
I'm sorry to pull a Sam here, but in this part where he says I had to call you and FaceTime you because I was having a problem with the game, just as a prelude, and I'm sure this is a smart audience, but I just want to note, kind of undermining his future argument here. But anyway,
I also like how Colin recommends a game that's by his friend. Like, it's not just a light game, and he's also going to scratch his friends back too.
What game did he recommend?
We can go back.
we can go back. We gotta really dissect this one. All right,
Connection, since I'm out of the video game world a little bit, although I want to talk some video games with you today.
Yeah, I hijacked the last one. I don't want to.
Yeah, but you have dragged me back into the world of games, and I'm happy about that.
Good.
But is there a connection that maybe is something through Gamergate and everything else about that when you're playing games, right? And I'm sort of back in now, and what am I playing? I'm playing
Axiom Verge.
Axiom Verge.
Made by my friend Tom Happ.
Yeah.
What a
how cool.
shitty name. Axiom Verge. That's how you know, like, every game that isn't made, by like a respected indie developer or like a big studio is just called like Ultimatum Apocalypse. Fucking cool.
I called you up. I'm like, I finally found a game I like. You're like, oh yeah, my buddy created it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, awesome. So I'm playing this game. It's sort of like an old school Metroid.
Yep.
And you have to do a lot of the things repetitively to really figure it out. I had to FaceTime with you because I got stuck in these two stupid walls. And okay, whatever. But that you have to accomplish something
Why
in a
would you
video game.
FaceTime
You
him
have
for
to.
that?
because I needed to show him the wallet.
Like what? Why would you FaceTime? So
Keep
stupid.
trying to succeed. Yes, can you go to GameFAQs or can you get the cheat code?
Can
and all
you
that stuff?
can you
do,
call
but
your friend who's a
it
game
really is
designer
about
over
you
FaceTime?
figuring
He
out.
sounds so much like That Sodding Gamer, by the way. I can't wait till we watch the video because it's. He sounds
Walls
so
and-
much like him. It's fucking. Just put on That Sodding Gamer because it's the same voice.
All right, we need to hear.
He's like
this.
That Sodding Gamer's brother.
This is the Henry Ford Practical Elite Katana. You can see there.
Yeah.
This is the unveiling.
I feel like this
am
guy is a
opening
much more authentic human being.
Oh, he's a way better person. Than
Yeah,
Dave
I
Rubin.
don't want to trash him like I trash Dave.
I would never
Yeah.
talk about That Sodding Gamer all the time and do his voice constantly, all the time, every day. But he does, like, that is Dave Rubin's voice. kind of.
Absolutely.
Like, if That Sodding Gamer went to finishing school, he would sound like Dave Rubin.
That would be a much less cynical Dave. I feel.
That's like what Dave should be in his heart. Like, That Sodding
Yeah.
Gamer. Okay, I've watched a lot of his videos.
Yeah,
but,
I'm getting that sense. All right, break it down.
But he like does a lot of like loot box unboxings and doesn't seem to like any of this stuff. But he's like, yeah, I don't. He's a way better person than Dave for sure. He's smarter than Dave.
Oh,
Okay, whatever. But that you have to accomplish something in a video game. You have to keep trying to succeed. Yes, can you go to GameFAQs or can you get the cheat code and all that stuff? You do.
It's a
But
very weird cheat
it
code.
really is
Cheat
about you
code, cheat
figuring
code,
out
cheat
how to
codes.
do all this stuff.
But even
And
the
that
cheat
to me sort of shows why the media, and especially the leftist media, hates games now or hates gamers. They don't like people who solve problems. Is this a bridge too far?
That's
or
what
am
I'm
I
doing
onto
9
something?
hours a
haven't really
day.
thought-
I'm solving problems. That's what I do when I'm just screaming about like a 15-year-old on Vyvanse killing me in one of the games I play. I'm solving a problem. When I just fucking slap my wall because I missed my pump shot, that's a problem that's being solved.
That's a problem.
I'm a
that
practical
wasn't being
individual.
Solved. So is this okay? All right. Well, is there any more?
Let's hear Colin's response here.
Oh yeah.
Or can you get the cheat code and all that stuff? You do, but it really is about you figuring out how to do all this stuff. And that to me sort of shows why the media, and especially the leftist media, hates games now, or hates gamers. They don't like people who solve problems. Is this a bridge too far, or am I onto something?
I don't know. I haven't really thought. I have to think about it. I haven't really thought about it.
I think
that is such
That
a
is
good.
the most diplomatic. You're a fucking moron, but I'm on your show and I'm scratching my friend's back in this appearance response.
Coming from a guy who is known for like libertarian Gamergate coverage.
Yeah.
Right.
Like to have not have thought
Right.
of that.
This is a guy who's like, my whole career is built on subpar games and like having emotional meltdowns about women like making games. And I'm looking at you and I'm saying, yeah, you really made me think. Shit.
That was the most polite way he could have put Dave down there. Like, but if you're not going to sell that guy, like, who are you going to sell on that idea?
No one. Although that could be the subtitle of Dave's show. That was the most polite way of putting Dave down there. All right.
Gamers want to get shit
definitely.
done, whatever world you're in. Whether you're playing a sport.
Rewind it a little bit because this is actually super important. That guy did give Dave the like, yeah, I guess. And now Dave does not take that as a cue. Oh, yeah. Check out how stoked he's getting really passionate here.
Why the media, and especially the leftist media, hates games now, or hates gamers. They don't like people who solve problems. Is this a bridge too far, or am I onto something?
I don't know. I haven't really thought. I have to think about it. I haven't really thought about it.
I think there's something there. Gamers want to get shit done. Whatever world you're in, whether you're playing a sports game or an adventure game or an RPG or whatever, you're building something. You're accomplishing something. You may have to have teammates.
Say that about
do it. You don't want people.
Any human activity.
People who watch movies want to get shit done. They start out at the beginning of the movie and they want to get to the end of the movie. They want to find out what happens.
Not even just humans, like mice in a maze trying to get cheese. They're trying to get shit
Yeah, they're
done
trying to get.
too.
That's why the left hates them. But I think what's incredible though is that this actually the back end of this that's like maybe when it occurred to Dave is there. Do you remember like several years ago how like gamification was like a big Silicon Valley trend? And I forget there was a woman I think her name was like Jane McGonigal or something, and she wrote this whole book about how like people could like apply the principles of gaming to make their daily lives better and do better in school and all this stuff. And I'll admit, I didn't read the book, but I read like, I think Yevgeny Morozov was that guy who's always explaining how technological people are psychos who are destroying the earth. And he was like saying like, I think it was him. He was basically saying like, there's points in this book where like you're trying to get points for like taking a shower. Like he was saying like, you shouldn't have to like gamify like doing like basic human self-care, and that this is actually like incredibly depressing and like a sign of like a total like collapse of meaning in people's lives, and it's getting like spun as like, ooh, this is really exciting. We can gamify taking a shower.
I'd like to read that because I feel like anyone who just thinks like it's a practical way to look at your life has never. Maybe they play console games. They've never been in the world of PC gaming. To gamify your life,
explain the difference.
To gamify your life as a true gamer, a PC gamer, would be you first of all you get surgery to see the world in stretched resolution, so you have a better field of vision, and your enemies' hitboxes are bigger. You use an aim training program to get flicks on enemies, who could be your family, your coworkers. Now, I'm not suggesting anything. Don't do anything.
Don't do this on my platform.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not. I wouldn't suggest it on mine.
Yeah.
But if you were to gamify your life, I'm just saying, this is how you do it. I mean, because
do you remember
everything else,
Dave
like,
Chappelle, where he's in Grand Theft Auto.
That was a good like throwaway one he did.
Yeah, it's just like the main part of it is him just jumping in front of cars, being like,
but then
like hobbling up.
But isn't like anything they describe as like a game thing, like, oh yeah, you solve a problem like in a game,
Yeah, or like in life.
Or like, yeah, right.
Like anyone does. You can have linear progression like in an RPG. Like doing anything before there were ever RPGs. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I don't know. I think I'm really onto something here.
I think the media does not like people who play fighting games because they've realized all their special moves, and the leftist media especially hates it when people fill up their power bar.
Yeah.
They do not want to see people do fatalities.
They don't want people with high power bars. I really think I'm onto something.
I think I'm onto something. People do not like people who play games like Sekiro.
How the fuck is Dave Rubin so stupid? I mean, honestly,
he's like Sam Harris is just like a bad, cynical guy, but Dave Rubin's like legit. He's a fucking
that's the
bimbo.
Point I'm making is like Sam Harris. Well, first, I mean, Sam Harris is a gormless motherfucker and not nearly as smart as he thinks he is. But Dave Rubin is like dumb. Like
he's a fucking bimbo.
Yeah, he is a fucking bimbo who's really interested in ideas.
I think that gamers, when their approach to life, where they call somebody who beats them gay, is very smart.
Yeah. Now, the left doesn't like that, but I feel like when they're in the process of their passion and they say, hey, you're fucking gay, that's like the spirit of competition.
Now, when in real life, when you swat somebody you don't like, I'm so glad that Dave Rubin voice is just that sounding gamer voice. I can do it twice as much now. It's my favorite voice to do.
Yeah, got you. What did you think? Do you remember when you first found out who Sam Harris was?
Yeah, I think I was like 14 or 15,
Jesus.
and well, I didn't really give a shit about him because it's like I was like, even at that point, I was like, aren't there already like 4 guys who just talk about how God isn't real all the time? Like, why is there another guy? What the fuck is there?
Why is there another more boring guy?
Yeah, I would get mad when he was on Bill Maher because it's like, Bill, you're already the atheist. Like, why do you need a double atheist? Like, do you need because no one who's like
avowedly anti-theist has ever come up with like a new or interesting way of putting it since like 1832.
Right.
It's just the same shit. It's not brave to do anymore. There's nothing. What are you going to interview him about? So, Sam. In what way isn't God real today?
Sam, isn't it crazy that people believe in God?
I
want to smoke weed later.
I used to watch Bill Maher when I was like 16. Like, I thought he was funny.
I think we all did.
Yeah. And I still think he's funny. I didn't stop. I still watch him.
Do you think he's no, legitimately, because I'm very able to set politics. Like we all know Bill Maher has plenty of trash politics, and he always did. But like, is he really? I don't know, dude. He's missing a step to me.
Well, he's old.
Yeah, is that what's going on? Because he is legitimately not as funny as he used to be. There were times when you could watch him and go like, this guy's a fucking asshole, but he is pretty funny.
Yeah, well, he's old. That happens to everyone. That happens to everyone. I don't think he's like special.
You think Stern isn't funny anymore?
How could he be? I think he's still got some of that magic, but like, how the fuck could he be as funny as he was?
But that's not
the late 90s?
I think that's just pure earnings.
Maybe that too. There are some guys who I think are still as fun. Like I think like. Speaking of people who's like politics, you may not like Norm Macdonald.
Norm Macdonald's funny, but Norm Macdonald's not loaded. Norm Macdonald clearly still has some human suffering about him.
But that's the thing about Stern. Like, how the fuck could you still be as funny as you were if you're on The Voice?
Yeah,
because like a lot of Howard Stern's thing is that he's this like gross outsider who will say and do things that no one else will do. And has this other way of looking at things that no one else does. How are you going to do that when you're on The Voice? It's impossible.
It's self-negating.
Yeah. What do you think would happen if Eddie Murphy did stand-up now?
Well, I think there's a reason he hasn't done stand-up.
Right. Steve Harvey stopped doing stand-up when he became a fucking daytime host.
You know the thing.
Steve Harvey used to be fucking hilarious. He's like
true.
Meme now.
This is true.
He was hilarious.
He was a legit funny comedian. I feel like if Eddie Murphy, I think the thing about Eddie Murphy though is that the only way it could, and I don't think he would do this because I don't think it's his personality, but I feel like he actually clearly has so much anxiety about doing stand-up that could be an interesting thing to mine for his stand-up.
Yeah, well, he was the guy for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Box office king of the 1980s. Like, I mean, it's massive. But I think, I mean, if you can't, I don't know if Bill Maher is necessarily on that level anymore. It just starts to feel lazy. Like, and that is where, like, the comedy being bad and the, like, We're gonna have Barry Weiss on, okay? Like there's a to me, it seems like there is kind of a convergence now between like his politics kind of suck, and he's just fucking tired.
But his politics always like kind of weren't amazing, but like,
no, his politics, yeah, that's true. Although I think now, but I also think now like we're in a different like we don't have to like tolerate people's politics sucking as much now because there's more options.
Well, that said, if someone's really hilarious or really great at what they do, I don't really give a shit what their politics are. A lot of people don't feel that way.
I do. I'm totally with you on that. But I agree with you completely. I'm just tracking like there does seem to me to be a decline in Bill Maher.
Oh, for sure.
And it's not just, and I agree with you, it's not just his politics because politics have always been like atrocious when he's talking about Israel or something. But he just seems off.
Well, that type of comedy, I think the world has aged out of it. Like, how many times can you just see like the headlines skewered? You know,
right?
Everything has its time,
right?
And for 30 years, that was it. It was like, oh, what happened this week in Washington? Let's set these guys straight. And before that, it was like, my wife's a bitch. I love going to the fucking dog track. And before that, it was like, what if a fat guy and a skinny guy were friends? Everything has its eras.
I feel like what if a fat guy and skinny guy were friends could come back. That's actually
it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad. What do you think about Meghan McCain? You ready to analyze the view with me a little bit?
Brave. She's a wonderful gal. I always give her the Fall of Friday. She still does not acknowledge me. And most of all, she's John McCain's daughter. You know,
that is definitely that is you really cannot forget that.
Felix, Meghan was described as a pog on Majority Report today. Michael didn't know what that meant.
I wasn't aware of what a pog was.
Would you like to explain that to him?
I don't know this tawdry term.
Okay,
Jesus.
Because
you're too busy solving.
I know
problems.
the homonym for pog. You know, pogging when you perform well at a game on Twitch. I don't know the pornographic other meaning.
So you're so invested in solving problems that you don't have time
to learn
dirty shit, right? Yeah. I really think that they're upset that people aren't jacking off because they're re-upping their energy bars.
They're solving a problem.
They're solving serious problems.
They're unboxing katanas.
All right, let's start with this. Is this first one? Is this Meghan McCain's socialism freakout?
It's a Zionism.
Which one's the? Okay, I wanted the Zion. Okay, yes, please, the Zionism freakout. Just before we watch this, Felix, did you ever think that Meghan McCain might be anything other than a Zionist?
That's when she was like, "Yeah, I might be a Zionist." It's like, no way.
Yeah, really?
Wow, really going out there.
Yeah, like I might support Bernie Sanders. All right, let's go. Check this out.
I would go so far as to say I probably verge on being a Zionist as well. But I will say that I don't have family that is Jewish, but Joe Lieberman and Hadassah Lieberman are my family. Yeah. And I take the hate crimes rising in this country incredibly seriously, and I think what's happening in Europe is really scary. And I'm sorry if I'm getting emotional, but the idea that this is politicized, I'm really not. I was very nervous to talk about this on the show because I thought it would become politicized, and it really shouldn't be. On both sides, it should be called out. And just because I don't technically have Jewish family that are blood related to me, it doesn't mean I don't take this as seriously, and it is very dangerous. Very dangerous. And I think we all collectively as Americans on both sides, and what Ilhan Omar is saying is very scary to me, and it's very scary to a lot of people, and I don't think you have to be Jewish to recognize that.
And
oh, Jesus. You don't have to be a Gentile to hate her.
Do you think she's such a good person for thinking Jews shouldn't be murdered even though she isn't Jewish? She thinks, oh man, I am like Oscar Schindler. I just don't think there should be. Go ahead and crucify me. I don't think there should be another Holocaust. Yeah, I fucking said it.
Yeah, I am the Oscar Schindler of trust fund babies, I guess. I could verge on being that. I don't think that Jews should be killed because they killed Christ, and I'm very upset about this.
She's such a shitty thinker that like she's trying to do like a cynical thing where she goes like, oh yeah, no, there's anti-Semitism rising everywhere in Ilhan Omar, but her brain just fucking drops the stack of books into a puddle and she falls face first into a mound of leaves because she goes, what's going on in Europe? And then just blank, static. What? Where? What? Where?
No, I noticed that.
Specifics.
That was like the crying version of like, you know, like when when the bro is like, well, you gotta look at what's happening in Nikkei to like understand the stock market.
But at least that's like, a proper noun.
Okay, you know what?
I mean, Europe is too. But it's like more.
Look at like,
what the fuck are you saying? Where in Europe? Which specific?
Well, that's become a major cliche. Like everybody knows what you're talking about though when you say that. Like that to be honest, that is like she's not that far out of the mainstream there. I hear that everywhere.
Well, there's that Douglas Murray PragerU video. Europe is committing suicide.
Right. Right, and she probably saw like a headline somewhere that like Jeremy Corbyn said Palestinians were human, and then there's like something about like a mosque opening up in France. And by the way, what I mean, we already covered this a bunch on the show, but I mean, what the fuck is up with these kids of politicians who have done nothing of their own merit, trashing a woman who literally goes from being a refugee to being a member of Congress, like has generated more in like an hour of her life in terms of problem solving than these people ever will.
If this was like a 12% better country, you would use Ilhan Omar as an ad for America, right?
Literally.
You know?
It would be the way it would be nation branding. You would have you would beam this out across the planet and say like, hey, maybe we just hit you with a drone.
She'd have a Nickelodeon
Maybe
cartoon.
we just opened a fucking McDonald's. Maybe we just opened a Coke processing plant over your fresh aquifers. But you know what? Here's this woman who escaped being a refugee and war in Somalia, and she is a member of Congress. Instead, what we beam out is some idiot daughter of the guy whose policies droned you, questioning whether or not she's an anti-Semite.
Yeah.
It's just like endless insult to injury.
She's one of the most inspiring stories out of like anyone elected in my time. Maybe the most. But
I think definitely the most. Honestly, I'm not being hyperbolic. I mean, I couldn't. Who else could you put in
Roland
that tier?
Burris.
Who?
Roland Burris.
Who the fuck is Roland Burris?
The guy Blagojevich appointed to Obama's old Senate seat.
All right. What was his deal?
He was nuts. He voted well though. He voted very well.
Didn't he vote?
I would love to
liberal?
have him. Yeah, I would love to have him instead of Dick Durbin.
He
was just weird. He had his family
sucks,
the first time they interviewed Roland Burris, it was very Tom Myers, because he was like, yeah, my family we already have a family plot, and I'm leaving space blank to put more of my future accomplishments on my headstone. People are like, what?
Oh, wait. He was the one with the list on his headstone?
Yeah.
I forgot about that. That was awesome. He literally had like, what was it? It was like, wasn't he like, he was like the first black speaker of the Illinois state legislature?
He did a lot of shit.
He had like a lot of legit
accomplished
accomplishments, but he was just
Illinois,
like etching them off on his headstone. It doesn't like Rob Blagojevich, talk about a guy who got a raw deal.
He should be out, but it's like, how many shittier people? Like Elliot Abrams is literally in charge of our Venezuela op. Do you think Rod Blagojevich is like a worse person? Yeah, Rod Blagojevich voted for the Iraq War. All the purity politics.
The worst thing he did.
All the purity politics people out here, just so afraid of a Serb advancing in an anti-Serb country like this. But
Rod Blagojevich should be an ad for America.
But he is like the thing. Okay, so the thing he did, his biggest crime was just saying, it was very Trump, just saying exactly the illegal part of it. Everyone does that,
and everybody does. And the best part, the one thing I remember because they released these tapes, right? And basically, what he's trying to do is like leverage, like, I'm going to appoint somebody to Obama's Senate seat. He's elected president, and basically, like, exactly right. Like, literally everybody else, like, I want something in return. But like a fucking idiot, he insists exactly on spelling it out. And there's that part where he says, like, he's just like, I got this thing and it's fucking golden. And they want me to get nothing for it?
It was the casino grocery store. It was the grocery store and casino, yeah.
Except there wasn't a mother there to say,
yeah.
Like, stop swearing.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Rob Blagojevich rocked. I met him when I was like 15.
How was it?
It was great. It was wonderful. He was like the most charming politician I ever met. I haven't met a ton, but he was like very engaging, and like he just cheers you up to be around. That's honestly why he got so far. Do you think he's like the smartest guy in the world?
No.
But he's just very charming.
That's the point of politics in a lot of ways. Actually, what politicians has everybody met? Then we'll get to this other. Then we'll figure out what needs to happen on The View. But I am actually curious.
This is, by the way, one of the least charismatic people on TV.
Meghan McCain,
just a black hole of it.
Doesn't she? But I think in a way, but there's the train wreck factor.
Yeah, I guess just a woman crying all the time.
Well, no, like let's watch this actually, because this is look at the amount
not being able to think.
Look at the entitlement and brattiness that she sort of brings to the game here, that makes it like genuinely awkward for everybody.
Border states. Many friends of mine, this is the #1 and only issue. And if we sit here and act like there isn't a crisis, that it's crazy people living in border states that think that there's a crisis,
but like I
just
said, this guy who's coming in wants to help those countries. That's the way to solve the problem. Keep them there happy or whatever. Solvent, give them a house, give them food, help their children.
Give a Nicaraguan
stop the
house.
crime rates.
Well, we've had a bunch of liberal guests who do not want to send in aid at all.
I listened to you. Let me just finish.
Yeah, but part of your job is to listen to me.
Okay, so here's the deal. Here's what's not going to happen.
She really thinks she's berating a shop girl at Body Shop right now.
Exactly.
That is someone who's never had to answer to anyone. Like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Isn't that disgusting though? Like honestly, like we can turn into a joke, but she's just a terrible person who exemplifies everything that's wrong with our world.
Well, I like how she says,
so
"I'm just saying" afterwards. So listen to it one more time here.
Me.
Okay, so here's the deal. Here's what
I'm just saying. And then Oprah, I mean, and then Whippy.
Oh, Michael.
Major fuck up.
Oh, my God.
Major fuck up.
FBI, open up.
Woke FBI. And then Whippy, but like, let's just think of the dynamics of this show. You have three women, two of whom are African American, right? And then an Italian woman, all of whom like have self-generated
women.
Joy Bear.
He's just busting out the Dennis Hopper or the Dennis Hopper. Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. We're slow folks who have self-generated careers, and then you have literally the daughters of two politicians. But Abby Huntsman at least is like, I'm going to pretend to be pleasant. And but do you think there's value in having Meghan McCain there as like the ultimate argument for like the elimination of all dynastic power in every shape and form?
I don't know how many people. I would like to know the average person's read on it, you know, because there's a ton of times where I think like I know what the average person will think, and I've just given up on it. Like, you just never. People in the world are just, they're so fucking discombobulated and weird and conditioned.
They're discombobulated enough to like Meghan McCain.
You could see she goes for it. What? Like, the people have the weirdest.
She goes for it.
Like, if you talk to, I mean, this is verging on Selena Zito-esque, but like, if you go outside, people are like, go outside your bubble and you'll see people support the president. And it's like, in their mind, they're like, oh, that means because they're hardworking and they like the Trump's honest. No, just because normal people have fucking bizarre opinions because they're just warped by a trillion different things. And like, to go back to Ilhan Omar a little bit, like
please.
The best, I saw like Ilhan Omar post something and this guy replied to her and was like, ma'am, I thought that honesty had left politics when Trey Gowdy resigned, but you have carried on his legacy. And that's just, there are more people like that than like people, totally any of us know who are totally dogmatic in their beliefs.
100%
and, will sort of get the party line on this and that. A normal person is just fucking insane. A normal person is like, yeah, I respect Cynthia McKinney, Trent Lott, what? But so I don't. In my mind, she is so just interpersonally shitty that like I don't think most normal, but I don't know.
That's what I'm kind of saying. I'm wondering if people could just get the read on that just like on a very basic human level, like this isn't clearly a very bad person. I'm not. Yeah. I agree. I'm not talking. And maybe the ideological lesson is if someone's entire life is handed to them simply because of their birth. Maybe that doesn't create like the best outcomes. But I am really curious. Have you met any other politicians besides Blagojevich?
I met Rom. We're on the same age.
What was that like?
Just boring. Just a fucking boring guy.
He just seems like a total piece of shit.
He
like
sucks.
the only ways in which he's exceptional are being like a bad person.
Yeah, there's nothing
like a really
interesting or,
boring
like-
guy who would cover a teenage murder.
Right. Like there are some guys who I
Yeah.
think are like shitty guys, but would be like interesting or funny to talk to.
Definitely.
Like I think that, yeah, I don't know. I guess like
Trent Lott, you'd like to meet.
He might have like like John Boehner is a perfect example.
Oh,
right?
John Boehner would be awesome to
Right.
hang out with for an evening. I mean, that's almost too easy.
Right. Like
he'd be like crying and shit.
Or like a shitty Democrat will have like some fun stories, but him just like, yeah, just pointless existence.
Totally.
Boring. Who have I met? Anyone else? Not really.
Who have you guys met? You guys met any politicians?
I met Byron Dorgan. He spoke at my undergrad in Minnesota.
What was he like?
Oh, he's fine. It was just a handshake. I met John Hoeven back in 2000 when he was running for governor against Heidi Heitkamp at a backyard barbecue. I wasn't political at that point. I don't know. That's it.
All right. You got any
Well,
meetings, Griscom?
Yeah, a couple. But just real quick on Boehner, I have a friend who used to work in Republican politics, and it's true that Boehner's a lot of fun to hang out with.
I have no
They
doubt.
had like
Yeah,
they had
Boehner-
a fun.
Boehner's clearly very fun to hang
My
out
friend
with.
worked as a bartender for events.
Yes.
And he was working at Republican, and then John Boehner asked him, he's like, "Do you mind if I make a few drinks?" And he took over as bartender for the rest of the night and was like, get fucking drunk. This is when he was still speaker too. So
of course.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, well isn't that like the shift in eras of politics? Because it first happened to Democrats. Have you ever read the book? I think it's The Will to Power. It's about Jim Wright, the former House Speaker from Texas.
No.
Well, it's about Wright, but it's also about Tip O'Neill and Dan Rostenkowski, like the Dem House leadership.
Hard drinking, blue collar guys
Yeah.
who were not like these preening psychopaths like Rahm
And even like the
Emanuel.
more DLC-ish guys were still like, they were like interesting. Like Tony Coelho was like interesting kind of, and they had things about them. And then it just like Clinton, just sad sacks, just dull sad sacks. But Republicans, they had a little bit of. You remember Duke Cunningham?
Yeah, I definitely remember
The
Duke
fucking
Cunningham.
crybaby.
This guy gets caught up. His whole brand is built on like, I'm the macho fighter pilot guy from Orange County. He literally compares himself to Cruise's character in Top Gun.
Yeah.
Right? And then he gets exposed in this like massive corruption scandal. Wasn't that the one where you could write request? He did it on napkins.
Yeah.
Like this amount for this favor. And then he was like on the floor of the house, like just sobbing.
Yeah. Well, so I think a similar thing happened, right? Where
Jesus,
okay,
this is
so
him. There it is. Christ.
yeah, he looks just like the guy
Yeah,
that they based
he
on
looks
him.
a
That's
lot like Tom
amazing.
Cruise.
He looks exactly like him.
It is very similar.
Duke, could you not stick your head into a beehive the day of the photo shoot? But so I think a similar thing, because Bill Clinton, piece of shit as a guy, but like very
interesting.
charismatic and interesting.
Yeah, charismatic and interesting.
But
bred a culture of mediocrity.
Right. Under him. So with Trump, he's like a piece of shit as a guy, but he's like interesting.
Right.
And an interesting guy and charismatic in his own way. But the guys under him, it's fucking like Paul Ryan and Kevin Mulvaney and Devin Nunes. None of these guys are interesting. They're not at all interesting. Even like 5 years ago, they were more interesting. Like,
what's going on? I think you're right.
I think it's just like one guy just saps up all the charisma or something. Maybe or it's just like he takes center stage, and you can't fucking upstage that. And if you try to upstage it as a Republican, you're doing like the Ben Sass or Mike Lee thing, and just you can only do that for like 3 months before people are like, who fucking cares? That is one good consequence of Trump, is that now, like after about a year of like Republicans standing up to him, people are like finally are like, shut the fuck up, you're not gonna do anything, stop it, I don't want to hear it. I was so fucking sick of that. I never hear about Jeff Flake anymore.
That's just what I was thinking. It was Jeff Flake. Well, Jeff Flake's got a TV gig, right? I mean, Jeff Flake will be a talking head. I'm sure he'll do some lobbying.
His son might twitch.
His son will twitch.
Oh, he's going to break those TOS standards pretty quick.
That was the most amazing. Like, it was so perfect. At first, it was like, I remember when Flake started getting all sanctimonious, the first thing I did was remind everybody, like, hey, you know how this guy basically literally got his career started was by lobbying for apartheid South Africa or mining companies that didn't want sanctions on apartheid South Africa, and then it's like perfectly buttoned by like he's out on the Senate floor being like, by golly, we don't talk like this, and his son's on Twitch like, you fucking MAGA man, fuck you.
Does his son support Donald Trump?
I mean, his son sounded very Trump-like when that story dropped. I don't know.
If his son supports Donald Trump, that's hilarious. Like, you can't even win over
that's
your son.
Like George. That's like fucking Jeb's son endorsed Trump.
Yeah.
Could you imagine somebody does that? Someone cucks your father, and I'm not being ironic. He cucked him on a daily basis for months, humiliated, emasculated, and like, could you just on a basic instinctual level, if somebody did that to your father, I don't want to presume what your relationship with your dad is, but like, I don't know. I couldn't imagine like being like, yeah, that guy. What if that guy who just completely destroyed my dad?
Maybe he offered him something.
He must have. I don't.
Mar-a-Lago bathrobe. No one could turn it down.
Sorry,
he's made
Jeb.
that deal hundreds of times.
We got to do that. Like, sorry, Jeb. Your son sold you out for a Mar-a-Lago bathtub.
It's one of a kind.
It's one of. You can't when you think about it, you can't really blame him because it's one of a kind. He goes into like a long explanation of how like actually the robe is made at this special facility.
The cotton guy, one of the most handsome men I've ever seen. Big guy, strong guy, came to me, tears in his eyes. And said, Donald, I don't think I can make this nice of a robe. I said to him, his name was Sam. I said, Sam, Steve, you have to. We've got to. This is just you. We've got to make the greatest bathrobe the world has ever seen. And even a lot of people don't like me. They put on the bathrobe. Suddenly, Trump's not so bad, is he?
Yeah. So suddenly he's a good guy. So maybe you shouldn't be so mad at your son, Jeb.
Did you see the clip at AIPAC where he's talking about the Israeli ambassador and he's like, and this guy, great big guy, full of life. He's like a big baby. Like that is what the fuck?
I don't know.
Legitimately has dementia. It rocks.
I mean, his brain is not right.
Yeah,
it's like when you no. I mean, it's like here's a person who's already totally out of his fucking gourd to begin with, and definitely like other processes are kicking in just from aging.
Yeah, like, do you think that's good for your brain to watch like 10 hours of TV a day and only drink Diet Coke?
Yeah,
it's probably the worst thing you like outside of just like licking the dirt at Chernobyl. It's just one of the worst things. And it just he's just president. He's just the fucking president. Like I saw him speak at CPAC,
right?
And he had so many There's this part where he's like, and I'm gonna say this word. Melania said, "Oh, don't say it." And there are a lot of reporters here. They're gonna see me say the word. Oh, should I say it? Should I say it?
That's the crowd, best.
Where the crowd was cheering, and then he just never even alluded to what the word would be, and just moved on to tariffs. Like he's such a fucking old guy. Like,
do you remember when he did remember the word or the phrase at New Hampshire about Ted Cruz? That was like,
which one was that?
That was his like crowning achievement. I mean, that was when he was in such peak primary form where he's in New Hampshire and of course I know exactly, like being from New England, I could picture in my mind so clearly the woman who shouted this. He's like, Ted Cruz. And some woman goes, he's a pussy.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just like, that was a very bad word. What? Oh, you should never. Should I say it? Should I say it? And at this point, I mean, they are I mean, it is like some type of like Nazi rally meets like KISS show, like in terms of like audience enthusiasm.
I was so mad I could never get into one in New Hampshire.
Oh my
I wanted to
God.
go so bad.
Like, she called him a pussy. She called him a pussy.
He's a pussy.
He's a pussy. And then he does the like, that was a very bad word, and I condemn you. There was a moment when you had this fucking clown fascist asshole mowing through the Republican Party, and then when Bernie won New Hampshire, that was like 48 hours where I was like, wow, maybe there's some hope for American politics here.
Yeah, and then Trump won and we were validated.
Right.
There was hope. We did it. Made America great
that's
again.
exactly.
We're gonna do it again.
You're really helping the brand here, Felix. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
I am.
Felix was telling me off mic.
I don't support President Trump, but I'm the new politics editor I'm the contrarian editor of Chris Evans' politics website. And contractually, I have to support President Trump, so job's a job.
Job's a job. All right, folks, we're going to go to the post game. Felix is going to hang out with us a little bit more.
I'm going to hang out a bit. I need to buy some fucking thing to put on the entire left side of my mouth.
Yeah, I got to let you go because I know you're in a lot of pain. We're just going to
hang out for a tiny bit.
We're going to talk about Yair Netanyahu.
Oh, he's got some fucking...
And then we'll...
he's got some good ones.
Yeah, and then we will let you go.
Who does Yair... Yair looks like Chris Hardwick. Holy fuck.
Does he look like Chris? I thought he looked like...
Or DJ Quails a little bit.
That one I actually see you. I see you. Become a patron today. Join us in the post game. We've of course got the debunk with Ben Burgess. We're talking about AMLO's first 100 days in office. We've got a whole bunch for you. Patreon.com/TMBS. See you in LA. TMBS live show in LA with Anna. Yeah, man. Oh, by the way,
that's a fucking good time.
Thanks for coming to the Bell House, brother.
My pleasure.
Felix was
my pleasure.
How did we do?
You guys fucking killed it.
Appreciate it, brother.
Most handsome guy I've ever seen in my life. Michael Brooks came up to me with tears in his eyes. Said, I don't know if I can do it. I said, Michael, you're going to do the greatest job anyone besides me has ever done at the Bell House.
That is actually literally what Felix said to me before I went on stage. That is basically, it wasn't in that voice. That's what makes it even more disturbing. It was in your normal voice.
I actually got stood up at the Bell House too. I was supposed to go with someone and they didn't come.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Well, now I'm angry at that person too. They insulted both of us.
Yeah.
Both of us.
That's why I was just fucking looking around like a psycho.
Crazy. All right. Well, folks, get your tickets. Anna Kasparian, Big Waz, Nando Vila. We're going to have an incredible time. We appreciate all the new patrons. We are on the move, and you'll get, of course, all of the illicit histories, idea primers, and you can join us for the post game. Check out the coverage on Jamaica, Haiti, and, of course, Lula Livre. We'll see you in the post game.